All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about how this Super Bowl loss affects Patrick Mahomes' legacy. And I think it depends on how you look at it. Because when you look at Patrick Mahomes and his career, his body of work, I don't think it impacts him that much because of what he's done in just a short amount of time. Three Super Bowls. I mean, he's been to the AFC Championship game every single year that he's been a starter. He's an all-time great. He's first ballot Hall of Famer. I think where this really impacts him is in the greatest of all time debate. Because you've heard it all over the place, I'm sure. Leading up to this game, and really over the past couple of years now, it's really been Mahomes and Brady. And just, can Mahomes catch up to Brady? And when we got to this point now here, if Mahomes was able to pull it off and and do a three-peat, would he surpass Brady? Some people were already talking about that. I said, and you can go back and watch the previous shows, I said it would only just narrow the gap. I would not be able to put him over Brady because, again, Brady did it for so long, and Patrick Mahomes still has some ways to go, even with the three-peat. But for me, and this could be an overreaction, but I think this kind of just took him out of the greatest of all time debate. Because Patrick Mahomes now with that loss is now 3-2 in Super Bowls. And Tom Brady at one point in his career was 3-2 in Super Bowls because you got to remember, he went 10 years without winning a ring. However, in all of Tom Brady's Super Bowl losses, Tom Brady never got embarrassed like that. Like what we saw on Sunday. Now, it's not just one individual, it's a team sport, I get it. But Tom Brady would not be losing 34-0 in a Super Bowl in the second half. Now, obviously 28-3 happened, but here's the thing. Tom Brady was able to come back from that. And he had some help, of course. The Patriots defense really stepped up in that Super Bowl. They shut down the Falcons offense. Also, you could blame Kyle Shanahan for some of the play calling because Matt Ryan took some sacks that he shouldn't have taken because the Falcons could have got some points. I mean, you remember Julio Jones makes that awesome catch down the sidelines, and you thought, okay, the Falcons are going to get some points here, and they're going to shut the door in New England, and they didn't do that. But Tom Brady was able to. Everybody's going to focus on Tom Brady, of course, and yeah, Tom Brady was a driving force in that comeback. And they were able to pull it off. The greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. 25-point deficit, and they won. But you look at his Super Bowl losses, though. 3 Super Bowl losses. 2 of them were to the Giants. Now, the Giants' pass rush gave him problems in both games. But he had an opportunity in those games to come back and either tie the game or win the game. Now, there wasn't that much time left on the clock, especially in the second Super Bowl, because he had, what did he have, like 57 seconds left? But he did get a Hail Mary up. He got a Hail Mary up in all 3 of his Super Bowl losses. And he ended up losing those 2 games. And then you look at the Eagles Super Bowl that he lost. Got a Hail Mary up at the end. But they lost the game. But he threw for 500 yards in that game. 500! The most passing yards in any playoff game ever. 500 yards. He never really embarrassed himself in the Super Bowl. His team never really got embarrassed. Well, I guess, losing to the Giants when you're on the precipice of a perfect season, okay, but, the Giants are 9-7. But it's just, Tom Brady never got demolished in a game like that, in the Super Bowl. Now, I went back and looked at some of his playoff losses. There were some games where he lost by a couple of scores. You know, the Ravens championship game in the 2012 during the 2012 season. There was also the game against the Broncos. This was before Peyton Manning. He lost by a couple of scores. That was his first playoff loss ever. Champ Bailey, the pick six. And then I think the most embarrassing loss came in the wild card game. That was in, I think it was the 2009 season, the 2009-2010 season. They lost 33-14 to the Ravens, and I vaguely remember that game, like watching it, because I do remember. I'm pretty sure I had it on in my basement when I was watching it. Ray Rice had a long touchdown run in that game. But again, that's before the Super Bowl. I was surprised by what we saw on Sunday. I really was. I thought these teams coming in were evenly matched. Yes, the Eagles, you could look at them and say they had better talent, but I just thought the Chiefs, with their experience, this game was going to be a close game, and it was going to come down to maybe who had the ball last, and it was not that kind of game. It's not that kind of game. The Eagles, from start to finish, they dominated this game. And I know that the Chiefs put up 22 points, but that's not really what the final score was. And it was funny because I saw on TikTok somebody posted, everybody is talking about this being his worst performance. It really was not his worst performance. The Tampa performance was worse. And he's showing, the highlights from, this individual is showing the highlights from the second half when he's down 34-0. You go on the NFL's YouTube account, and they pull up, and there's a Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl highlight video, right? You know when the highlights start? When it's 34-0. That's when the highlights start. Because, he hit Worthy on those two passes. One of them was for the touchdown, and then at the end of the game, and, the Chiefs, they were at midfield because Kenny Pickett and the offense, they went for it on 4th and 5, 4th and 6, whatever it was. They didn't get it. And then first play, Mahomes throws that pass down the field to Worthy for the touchdown, which was a great play. But you could also say garbage time, and the Eagles' backups were in. Anthony in the chat says, what are your thoughts on Aaron going to Miami? Do you think he'd be willing to be a backup or no? He still thinks he could be a starter. No, I think he's going to want to be a starter. And it's like I said before, an injury, maybe he waits for an injury to happen and then, maybe the team decides to pick him up. But I don't think he's willing to be a backup. But anyways, back to what I was saying here. Yeah, it's just, that was the worst game I ever saw Mahomes play. And I went back and watched the highlights last night. I mean, he almost threw a pick on the first drive of the game, where he's rolling around, where he's running around, and then, he throws it towards the sideline, and it almost got picked off. He could have had 3 interceptions in this game. He could have had 4 turnovers. And then the next 2 picks, look, it was 10-0. If Mahomes doesn't throw those 2 interceptions, maybe the Eagles get, another touchdown or a field goal or something. Maybe it's like 17-0 instead, or it's 13-0. All right, you're still in the game. But those 2 turnovers, the Eagles immediately cashed in. They turned that into 14 points. And all of a sudden, you're down 24-0. Now, the Chiefs have come back from a 24-0 deficit before. But they did it in a quarter. It was the Texans game from Mahomes' first Super Bowl run. But now this is in the Super Bowl. And, I'm sitting there going, all right, well, if Mahomes is going to want to show that, he's up there with Brady, you got to try to come back from this. But I just, at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, they're done. After the Cooper DeJean pick 6 to make it 17-0, I'm sitting there going, I don't think they're coming back from this. And just the way the offense was moving and just, Kelsey didn't look right. I mean, you watch Travis Kelsey, and people have commented on this. He catches the ball, and it's not like he tries to, juke out a man or truck somebody. He's not doing that. He's just catching the ball, and then he just falls down. He just gets tackled. He's not the same player that he was. And I don't know what happened with DeAndre Hopkins on that drop on 3rd and 11. I'm not saying that would change the game, but at least the Chiefs maybe would have got some points to go into the half. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, he catches that. He usually catches that ball, and he just dropped it. But it was just, that's why I go back to saying, not only did the better team win, the more prepared team won. I don't know what the Chiefs are doing, but yeah, it's just, for me, I really think this Super Bowl performance just slammed the door on Mahomes being considered the greatest of all time. And even if this didn't happen, and if they lost a competitive Super Bowl, it'd be different. But the fact that he is 3-2 in Super Bowls now, and the 2 losses are blowout losses, that is always going to be held against him. Because Tom Brady never got blown out in the Super Bowl. And I look at the Tampa Super Bowl differently, because I don't think Mahomes gave away the game. I think he gave away the game in this Super Bowl here. Because the Chiefs were able to move the ball against Tampa. It's just they could not score. They would get down near the end zone, and they couldn't score. And there were drops early on in that Super Bowl too. And I thought the Chiefs' defense kept them in the game here on Sunday. It's just then once the turnovers started happening, then they released the hounds, as Mr. Burns from The Simpsons would say. It's just, I look at Mahomes differently after the Super Bowl. I really do. I can't look at him the same way after this. And that doesn't mean that the Chiefs are going to bounce back from this. All right, I know this sounds like this is doom and gloom for Mahomes, but they're going to bounce back from this. Mahomes is going to win. I would say he would win at least one. He's going to win at least one more ring. I don't want to say. I would lean towards saying 2. But I know he's going to win one more. But I think in terms of just the overall greatest of all time conversation, I don't think it's ever going to happen. If he wins 8 Super Bowls, I mean, yeah, you can come back to this and we can come back to this discussion. But I don't know. For me, I think it's going to be Brady until somebody else comes along, and but it's hard. It's hard. And Tom Brady played for so long. This is not normal, what he was able to do. And again, he had some help. It's not. Tom Brady didn't do it all by himself. You could go back to all of his Super Bowls and you could point out other things that went his way and say that's the reason why they won. Like, look at the beginning of the second dynasty. The Patriots were on the verge of losing, and then Russell Wilson throws the pick. But you could also say, well, Tom Brady overcame a 10-point deficit in that. And then look at the Falcons. The Falcons had a complete meltdown. It's... But you know what? Tom Brady could have just laid down and said, yep, the game's over. But he didn't. They kept playing. I felt like on Sunday the Chiefs did give up. When they panned to that sideline and you just saw all the looks on the players' faces, they just looked like they were done. Like, we have no chance of coming back. So, I don't know. I could talk about this for hours, but we got to go to our next break. Actually, before we do that, just want to remind you guys, again, tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat. If you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast, makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Russell Wilson now. And it looks like him and the Steelers will be parting ways. So we'll talk about that. I'll give you my thoughts on it when we return. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.